Hey YouTube, today we're going to look at shooting a wedding, shooting with the Canon R6 during the wedding, using the RF24-105 at this wedding, and all kinds of other stuff. And now I'm preparing for the wedding. So the day before, you got to get all your gear together, you got to make sure all the lenses are clean, all the cameras are charged, your SD cards are wiped. You always want to make sure that any camera bodies you have the same time zone set, to the minute, so that when you're syncing up all of your files in Lightroom after, all of the files fall in line time-wise. If you've ever had that happen to you before, where one is an hour off and then all of your photos are kind of like misaligned. So just walking you through some of my thought process for the day, how I prepare, how I get ready, what I use. So I'll be shooting with the Canon R6 as my primary body. I'll have the RF24-105 on that the whole time. I have to thank the people at Movri for sending me this lens. They're going to let me test this out to see how it works out for this wedding. The reason I rented this is because I don't trust the EF24-105 for any kind of important work. I've seen through 1 year of testing that lens does not work on the R series cameras. It's just too old, it's incompatible, it misses focus all of the time. So I can't wait to test this RF quality glass. It's L series. I think it's going to kill it, and I'm going to feel really good knowing that it's on my camera. It's going to be also my first time shooting with eye autofocus during a wedding, using servo mode, using 2 camera slots. A lot of firsts that I'm going to try. I'm also going to try and shoot 4K video to do a little clip for them. I'm going to try and do a quick vlog for this video to try and bring you along with me, see how I do it, see how I feel the best I can. It's going to be a lot to do in this day, but I'm going to help Doug and Lisa through their wedding. As a photographer, we're going to have like a first look tomorrow morning. Something you must do as a wedding photographer is you have to go out and scout where this wedding is taking place. You don't want to just walk into this blind, not knowing where the light's coming from, where you're going to shoot, what the best spots are, how you want to position your couple. You really need to save yourself some time and some stress by going down there a couple days before the wedding at least, to get a sense of the season and the time at the same time of day that the wedding happens, so that you get the same light. And take some photos and get a feel for what you're going to be shooting. You will thank yourself after you do something like that. So I went and I did that, and I'm all prepared. I've instructed the couple how their first look is going to work, where they're going to stand, who's going to walk where. It's all on me. I made all the creative decisions there for them. I'm happy to do what they want, but it shows extra level of attention as a photographer that you have a creative mind and you can help them out on that day. It's going to go and take you much farther. So just taking a look at the RF versus the EF, they're about the same size. The RF is slightly bigger. They both have about the same amount of throw, maybe a little more on the RF actually. Yeah, it's slightly taller. They're about the same weight, and they both have similar features with autofocus and stabilization. The key factor here being that it's an RF mount. It's made for the R6. There's additional pins with RF glass that's going to talk even more with the R6 body to help it gain more focus, more stability, even better, faster photos. So I'll have my trusty old Canon 6D with me. I haven't shot with this seriously in quite some time, but pretty sure I'll just pick up and remember how this thing works. I'll keep prime lenses on it just as a backup in case I want to get something really wide or a portrait really creative and just do something different, but the 24-105 will probably just stay on. And I'll just shoot with the R6 probably the whole time. But it's nice to have 2 camera bodies that you own, that you can have as a backup. Always have enough cards so you don't run out of space. Always have enough batteries so you don't run out of juice. The R6 is a juice sucking machine. Once you have servo going, eye autofocus, shooting 4K video with this live LCD screen in the back that you're doing touch features, there's no way even one high capacity Canon camera battery would last an 8-hour day. So I bought a second one just in case, because I did not think I would make it through a whole day. Mind you, I'm only doing a 3-4 hour wedding, but it is not worth that risk in my opinion. So I've got at least 4 batteries to play with, and 2 pro-grade SD cards that are the fastest possible, so there won't be any buffering or video errors happening like the slower cards do. Make sure my bag is packed up. I like to use, I have an in-case backpack It's got two nice backpack straps to kind of walk around, quickly lug my gear. It's got enough capacity that I can fit 2 camera bodies in here and multiple lenses and a flash. And there's lots of storage in the front for all kinds of different cards and batteries. And so that's enough for today. I'm gonna go get ready and I'll see you guys tomorrow at the wedding. So we're here in Demanin Gardens in Halton Hills. It's a beautiful day, sunny, 30, great day for a wedding. I'm here a little bit earlier just to kind of check things out and look at this garden. This is just a gorgeous place to take some photos, lots of plants, lots of walkways, gazebos. We're gonna do a first look just right over there. So I'm really excited to get this started, try out this gear. So far everything's performing well. I got the whole plan for the day. You always want to know where to be, what time. So I'm just waiting for the bride and groom to show up and then I can get this party started. All right, we're all wrapped up. I'm on my way home, and overall, I feel like it was a successful shoot. I nailed all the shots I needed to nail. The camera kept up. The autofocus was really snappy. The camo was really fast. The 24-105 RF mount gave me all of the range of like wide to narrow portrait shots that I wanted to hit very quickly, zoom in and out, very snappy all around, really quick. I haven't seen the photos on the computer yet, but from the previews, everything looked rich, everything looked in focus, everything looked correctly exposed, which brings us to the biggest highlight of today, which is shooting with the R series, the R6 Body, being able to see what exposure the photo is before you take it brings an immense level of confidence throughout the day, knowing that everything you're snapping is everything you're seeing. So you don't need to preview anything. You don't have to do any of that chimping. Chimping is dead with the mirrorless line. The only times I did chimp was out of habit because I was just so used to doing it and I wanted to just take a look at some photos. It was not out of necessity. I didn't need to check anything. I can safely say that everything I load up in Lightroom is going to be perfect. I can't check the focus just yet, but I did zoom in on a few and it looks like, it was working well. Like I said, the exposure looked really good. It was a very bright, very sunny day with harsh lighting, shooting around midday, which gives you those nasty kind of shadows around the eyes and the face. So we found pockets of shade, but when I had to, because you're forced to sometimes, you can't move the subject if they're in a wedding ceremony outdoors. It was very easy to kind of like adjust exposure compensation. You could see the camera really trying to get the brightness and shadow to be balanced. And I know from experience in RAW, these photos balance really well, and I feel like I have no problem there. One of the other biggest things to note is that I brought the 6D along, and I never touched it once. I didn't need to take a single photo with it. I didn't want to take a photo with it. It felt like old technology, doing point and shoot, not knowing what your photo's going to come out like. And I just also didn't need any other range, like 24-105 covered pretty much everything. There were some moments I wish I had the 70 to 200 range, but it was for so few amount of shots. I just framed up the image nicely and I'll crop in a little bit. That'll give me some zoom. They were like ring hand-holding shots during the ceremony, so it wasn't a high volume, not worth a $2,000-3,000 lens for one day. So again, that camera sat on my bag and it has me wondering, is DSLR dead? Should I sell that camera? Is it worth keeping around anymore? Should I maybe upgrade to an R for that, with that body to stay in the mirrorless line and stay a little bit more relevant? Because it just felt outdated and didn't want to come out of my bag. So that's about where the positives end. So here's a couple problems that I ran into why I think this may not be something you should pick up for a serious professional. This is more of an enthusiast for fun kind of toy camera. It's high end, but it's very much, for having fun. So big issue was batteries. I was only shooting for 3-4 hours, half day wedding. I burned through 2 full high capacity, they're newer batteries, and I only had 2. So thankfully,
the wedding wasn't much longer, but I would have needed 4 to 6 to feel really, really safe. These batteries are like 120 bucks each. So, you know, you're up to like $500, $1,000 worth of batteries for one camera body. That is just not acceptable. They need to do a better job creating a more efficient camera, energy usage consumption, and a better battery. The other thing I had an issue with was the eye autofocus. And I can see why the new R3 or R1 cameras are coming out with like eye tracking. So it can see what your eye is focused on in order to change where the autofocus is happening. What happened is with weddings, there's a lot of people and they're pretty close together. And if somebody's in the foreground, but you want somebody in the background, the eye autofocus kept snapping to the head in the foreground, and it refused to lock on to the bride and groom who I was trying to frame with people in the foreground. So I found I always had to go to the touch screen and touch and say, I want that face, and then hold on to it, and then I could kind of like compose and take the picture. So it was pretty annoying, I'll be honest. It deterred me from like recommending this camera and saying invest further into it. I think we need to wait until better camera bodies come out where this eye autofocus is more controlled, because it is not as good as focus and recompose, which is 100% accurate when you need it. But then on the flip side, the eye auto tracking can move with the subject, and there was a lot of movement, and it handled movement really well. Where it struggled with the eye autofocus was when the subject was static. It's like everybody's, is trying to pick something where the action is, but there's not action happening. So people moving, no problem, but static shots, I had to really baby it and tell it what to do, which you don't want to. You're paying for the AI autofocus and it's not working really well. Switching back to another positive is I was able to shoot these vlogs. I was able to shoot some 4K video really quickly and take all my photos. So as an amateur videographer, to be able to just track my subject anywhere and quickly switch to video, it was beautiful. I can't wait to see what I can do from a full scale of multimedia to deliver as content instead of just photos. One thing to note with the 4K video is it really feels heavily cropped. There's a crop on the 4K. And every time I shot with it, I found I had to either pull back or zoom back. It's extremely annoying. I would wait for a camera that does not have a 4K crop on it. So I would not recommend doing what I did with this camera and investing in it if this is something you plan to do seriously. There's just a lot of drawbacks with the R6, unfortunately, that make it not worth recommending that price. So it's more of somebody who wants to dabble in the new features, not somebody who needs them in a high efficiency scenario. So I think that's enough for now. I'm tired, I want to go home. I can't wait to go take a look at these photos and load them up, and we'll talk again as part of this video to see how those photos came out.
And we're back on the computer. We've finished all the post-production. The wedding has been delivered to the client and everybody's happy. Creatively, I love the results I got. The quality was outstanding. So let's take a little dive into how it went, take a look at some photos, and discuss some of the properties and qualities of the lens. The RF24-105 with the R6 combo. I could shoot everything from wide, getting into the zoom, and everything came out great. The f4 still created a nice bokeh at the full 105 zoom, while maintaining everybody in focus for a group shot like this. If you had brought a f2.8 zoom, it would have been completely unnecessary. There was an abundance of light in outdoor weddings, and shooting at f2.8 would have put somebody in a group shot like this out of focus, so you wouldn't have used it anyway. And the last thing you want to do is put a bride or groom out of focus on a wedding shot. I felt I could do all kinds of creative things, adding foreground at zoom ranges, creating really nice effects. I didn't need to crop any of my photos to create any kinds of crazy alternate horizontal portrait views, because I ended up taking both in camera. The autofocus was so fast and so snappy, I would just quickly rotate my camera and take a second shot at the alternate angle. And I had so much options to play with. The only time I took the lens off was to take this one macro shot with the RF35 that I bought earlier in the year, which I'm really happy I did because I love how this shot came out. I want to show you here the amount of recovery that's possible with the R6. This shot was a little bit blown out, bright white dress on a sunny day, and it's incredible how much it recovered. It's as if it was shot at a completely different exposure really impressive how much the highlight and recovery can do. The dynamic range of this camera was outstanding too. Shooting a couple into a backlight subject scenario, normally this would produce a harsh silhouette and a blown out background or vice versa. And it did an outstanding job of finding what needed to stay in and just creating a nice balanced photo so that I could create what I thought was the best shot of the day. This nice hair backlit shot, bright colors, great contrast, all around just a fantastic photo. The eye autofocus did great with RF glass as predicted. If I was to take this shot with the EF Mark I, you can guarantee that this would have been out of focus because the EF glass, not all of them are fast enough to keep up with the incredibly fast R6 autofocus. And it just followed the eye in servo mode. It was great. I could just keep snapping her walking down the aisle. I love being able to quickly take a wide shot without switching lenses. Notice here the lack of barrel distortion and vignetting at the 25 range, something that a lot of wide EF lenses suffered from. Non-existent here. Really, really great. Saves a lot of time in post-production. I also love how much recovery in the background there was. It brought out the blue in the sky that was completely blown out. Really great job recovering that. I love having the R6 set to auto white balance, white priority. The entire wedding I had very, very little color balance happening because everything was just properly color balanced right off the bat. All I had to do was enhance the colors that were already there. Nothing was shifting crazy yellow and orange, considering all the forest and shadows that were around. And just overall, I took about 1,300 shots. That's a little bit higher than normal for a 3-4 hour wedding for me. And I think that's just because of how fast the camera is. And the good news is that like a high 90% of those were in focus, tack sharp, hitting its target on the eye, and almost nothing was unusable because it was in focus, but it was also properly exposed because you're seeing the exposure before you take the shot on mirrorless cameras. So high degree of usable, sharp shots just makes life easier, having more to play with, more options. So I highly recommend the RF24-105, especially for outdoor weddings. Incredible value at high quality with great variety. I think I want to sell my old EF one actually to try and upgrade. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you later.